You don't get what you deserve. You get what you can negotiate. The problem is that us writers are much better at writing than we are at horse trading with financiers and producers. We need to get on level terms with our producer partners. We need a system. I'm going to give you 2 negotiating systems that you can use to maximize revenue on your next film deal.
My motto is, if you want to win the lottery, you have to make the money to buy a ticket.
Big disclaimer, in an ideal world, you should not be negotiating your own contract with a producer or a financier. You should have an agent, an attorney, or a manager on your deal. But we're not in an ideal world.
I know that today's work culture no longer caters to the job loyalty that could be promised to earlier generations. What I believe, sir, is that good things come to those who work their asses off.
If you can't get a representative, the minimum you can do is be educated about what you need to have in your contract. Before I was a screenwriter, I worked in advertising sales at the Financial Times newspaper, and they trained me up. I went from telephone sales to field sales, and then the bear pit of advertising agency media sales. And by the time I left the FT, I was handling accounts and negotiating accounts worth £3 million a year. What I'm going to share with you today is a combination of what I've learned in the film world and in the ad world. It's all about knowing 3 numbers before you enter a negotiation, before you even get to the table. And the first number is your G number. This is your good number, the number that you want to get for your contract. And you should write that down on a piece of paper before you've even heard from the other side. Don't let them sway you or set the pace and say, well, I wonder what I can get for it. Know your worth, know your number. That is not the number that you open with. Now, this seems so obvious, but actually, many of us are unable to do this because if, say, we're sitting down with a producer, maybe we become friends with them, and they say, listen, mate, I haven't got much money. We're doing this on a budget. What's the best price you can do this for? And automatically, if you're an honest person, you're going to think and say, well, it's my G number. But that would be more often than not a mistake. Do not give the producer your G number. You need to hide that number well away. Hide it and cover it up in layers, put it in a safe and lock it up. So you open with a G plus number. How much more should your G plus ask be above your G number, the number that you want? So there's 2 schools of thought here. The first is that you shoot 20 to 30% above your G number. So you have room to wriggle, but you're not overpricing yourself. And the second is, you know, when you've got the right G plus number, when it makes you squirm with embarrassment. Now, if you look at the negotiation in Nightcrawler, he doesn't have any embarrassment, but boy, does he shoot for that G plus number.
How much?
100,000.
How much?
50,000.
I need a number. 9 minutes, I need a number.
I just gave you 2.
3,000.
Both of these characters here, they're trying to anchor and set the level. She is incredibly low and he's incredibly high.
I got 3,000 for the food truck stabbings.
There were more, Dad.
Those were poor Mexican people in a roach coach. 2 of them were illegals. These are 3 wealthy white people shot and killed in their mansion, including a suburban housewife shotgunned in her bed. I know you, Nina. I know your interest and excitement in this product is greater than the amount you're offering.
And then we get to the counter. Where you counter is absolutely crucial.
5,000.
This is why you need to know your G number, because wherever your C number is, it needs to be quite a bit away from your G number.
30,000.
7,000.
25,000.
8,000.
15,000.
9,000.
15,000.
He knows his destination. He knows the point where he wants to get to.
10,000.
15,000.
Give me a serious number.
15,000.
Renee, she's doing a lot of bluffing. She's saying best price, best price.
Can't do it, never happened. There's a matter of precedent. 10's my last best offer.
But he's not listening to this.
Okay.
Really?
The third number you need to know is your W number. And often, both sides walk away. And that's a point where you should not panic.
Where are you going?
Sevens approached me at least several times. The ND there gave me his number. They'll make me a better offer. It's a 5-minute drive.
And they're testing your resolve. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes they really will walk away.
Hold on.
That walk away moment, it's a pause for thought, the chance of everybody to assess how much they want what is being offered.
I can't spend a month's budget on a single story.
What if the story's not over? They're still out there, walking around with the rest of us. If I had a family and I lived in a home, that might make me nervous. I'd want updates on what was going on. With this footage, people would turn to your channel for the story.
You might have to concede and come down, or you might get what you want And in both cases, what you can do is you go for the car radio.
15,000 isn't all that I want.
Now, the car radio is a term that I got from my late great father, who was an accountant who worked with a tycoon, and they used to buy companies together. They would refer to the car radio at the very end of the deal, because at the time, if you bought a car, that would be the price, and then you'd haggle and get the car radio thrown in. An easy concession, but well worth going the extra mile for.
I want my work to be credited by the anchors and on a burn. The name of my company is Video Production News, a professional news gathering service. That's how it should be read, and that's how it should be said.
For my father, car radio was $100,000 in a deal. So what are the car radios in screenwriting? In my previous tutorial, I explained why net profits are a complete waste of space and you're never going to see anything. But box office bonuses can be a nice car radio. And remember, this is Jam Tomorrow, the producer that's optioning your project. They're not going to have to pay for this, but it's something that's worth going for if you can. The inherent conflict, obviously, in a negotiation is you want to pay them to pay as much as possible, and they want to pay as little as possible. And the thing about the G plus W negotiating system is they have those three numbers too. Their best number, their G number or G plus number, is your W number. They want to pay you as close as they can the number that you'll walk away from. And you want them to pay right up to the point of their walkaway number. But here's a real world example that my co-writer and I got into a couple of years ago. I used to be represented by Jewel Ross. Look him up. The guy's a legend. But Jewel guided us through a negotiating situation which had all the elements of what I've been talking about. We'd been working with a director on a script, quite a mid-level Hollywood, directed $100 million movies type director. The director had a very good relationship with this indie company. And we got into horse trading negotiations. They wanted to pay us to rewrite it. Jules said, right, you've got to trust me and you've got to have balls of steel. I know how much money we should get for this negotiation, but I need you to give me the permission to walk away. That is the most powerful instruction a client can give a representative, because it stops them trying to do the deal with one hand behind the back and gives them the license to be bold when they need to be bold. And that's exactly what Jules did. So he opened up the offer for this rewrite for $85,000. They no-noed it, came back at 30. Eventually we got them up to 40. At which point they said, that's it. That's our best offer, just like Rene Russo did in Nightcrawler. And Jules says to us, we walk at 40, we need 65. At that point, they walk away and we walk away. And we were very nervous because although we'd agreed to walk away, we needed that money really badly, and $40,000 was a lot of money. But the company didn't cave. What they did is they instructed the director to come to us and say, listen, we're going to hire someone else. So he's saying, come on lads, do the deal for 40. Don't think about the money you're missing up front. Think about the back end. And he did send us an extraordinary email. Our final offer was $65,000. So there's $25,000 difference. And we were nervous. And guess what? They paid it. So there is an example of what a representative can do for you. Jewel Ross put $25,000 in our pocket by knowing what the value of the work was and giving us, I guess, the courage not to buy into these psychological tactics of you're going to lose, be scared, be greedy. It's a hard contact sport negotiation. But I do have another system for you which takes away all the deceit and is absolutely transparent and down the line and allows you to be straight and strong. And that's what I call going Chinese. In the 1970s, President Richard Nixon and his team opened up trade negotiations with the Chinese. And the Chinese put out their opening offer. The American team tried to batter them down. And for months, there was no movement. And the Americans didn't get it. They were thinking, well, hold on, this is a negotiation. These are the rules of the game. You've got to come off your opening position, your G plus number. But what they didn't realize is the Chinese were playing a different game, which is their opening offer was their final offer. That this number was not a G plus number. It was both their good number and their walk away number. And only when the Americans understood that did they conclude the talks? So I think going Chinese in a negotiation is an alternative and viable strategy, particularly for writers who don't have agents, because you're not a trained negotiator. If you can't horse trade, then you need to be direct and you need to ask what you want. But you need to give them the speech. And that speech is, you say to the producer, look them in the eye, and you say, I'm going to give you a number. And I'm not going to negotiate. This is my number. I'm not coming off it. I think it's a fair number for what I'm worth and what this project's worth. If this number works for you, great, let's do the deal. If not, no problem, we'll work on something else. Your G number and your W number, that is one number and you do not come off it, which is why you need to know what your value is. Because if you're shooting too high, you're going to blow the deal. And if shooting too low, you're going to lose money. So that's the downside of going Chinese. So whichever negotiating system you're going to use, whether you're going to go Chinese or use the GG plus W system, make sure you prepare for a negotiation. That's the single most important factor that can influence the outcome. Make sure you've locked down your numbers, know your G number, know your W number, and then shoot for it. It's your North Star. The best negotiations are the ones where both sides walk away and they feel like they've got a fair deal. If you have either the writer or the producer who feel they've been screwed, then that can lead to resentment. So sometimes it can be better to compromise rather than to be, an absolute battle axe about stuff. You've got to think about them. Most producers don't have a lot of money. So if you're going to go in there and demand, and your demands are unrealistic, you're going to alienate your buyer and possibly lose them. However, if what you're asking for is totally fair, then you can stick to your guns. It's about being realistic. It's about not being too bullish. Don't be too much of an alpha on this. Be reasonable. Keep an eye on my channel and what I'm up to, and consider subscribing, because in my next video, we're going to look at the screenwriter's eternal dilemma. When should you work for free? And when should you walk the hell away?
So what do you say? Do you have a deal?